So the data is ready?
Yeah,
Okay.
I am. I'm ready to go.
Eric's not gonna be here. You got my text.
Yes, I got that. I'm good. Have a good run.
Well, you look like you were doing fine.
No, I couldn't meet my coach's
Well,
goal.
you were a little slow today, I noticed.
I was, and you didn't help me. But I couldn't meet my my time goal.
Eric didn't have any issues. You know, he said if we could work something out, but he didn't have any issues. Didn't see a whole lot of issue with the subject. He said if they can pay for that, he didn't have an issue. He said here, he said he was confused. He said you do it all or nothing. Do all the time.
All of what?
Do all the time. You know, and not. He said you're actually making another class. If you, he said, well, we can't do some. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Was his kind of thought.
Okay. Well,
But anyway, that may not come to discussion, but at least
yeah. We'll see. Okay. Well, then,
that was it. He was.
sorry, he's not here.
So I want to ask you one question. You got your mic on? Yeah, I'll talk.
Yeah, I do. Well, I'll turn it off. Yes.
What is our rating here? Let's go find some other projects to do.
Listen, we
Go ahead and do that. We'll replace that backboard.
beautiful daughters. It's a 6-hour drive.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Four. Actually, it says 4. How long did it take you to get over there? It says 4.5 actually.
4.5.
Maps, but I've never done it that fast. It's always like 5 or something.
Yeah, 4.5 and 5 to Raleigh.
Some of them for
Buzz probably makes it 4.
maybe some road.
4.5 to Raleigh. I know.
But that's what's Frank.
It's a hard 5.
They're playing Clemson baseball. Right. I think they're playing Clemson baseball.
Yeah.
North Carolina stuff.
You guys will have another, 30 minutes. So yeah, from Franklin, I'd make it 4.5 and then 5 to Raleigh. Well, it depends because they got so much road work, especially states. We're still working on all that. And if you get hit right there and get slowed down.
She lived in Brandon,
Oh, absolutely. You could actually.
Well, I was going to tell you that. Did you
Yeah.
see? Like,
We were back.
they said it's like if your dog's interested in like they said you don't bring it forward your first year because you don't.
So it's one of those things.
You wind up telling everybody around.
So here's what
air.
Yeah, that's where we get a lot of sense of.
He told me.
That's corroded and stuff.
Everybody ready? Welcome, and I'd like to call the meeting of the Highlands Town Board of Commissioners to order for February the 16th, 2023. Our first item on the agenda will be our moment of silence. Will you join with me in a moment of silence? Thank you. And if we'll all rise, say pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Our next item on the agenda is statement of conflict of interest. We post that at every meeting. If a commissioner has any conflicts, they can let the fellow commissioners know. Hearing none, let me move on to the next item, and that will be public comment. We'll open the floor for public comment. If anyone wants to make a comment, they can come to the podium. Please state your name for the record, and we'd appreciate you keeping it to no longer than 3 minutes or thereabout. So if anyone has a public comment, I'll open up the floor at this time. Alice Nelson. Yes, please.
So you all have heard most of this from me before, so we'll do it again. Yesterday, I had an up-close look at the emerging future of Highlands, in my opinion. And while I can see it might please the real estate business and some other people, it makes me sad. My husband and I walked around the beautiful old Crane house behind the fire station. The house, well, I thought it was going to be torn down until I read the paper this morning. It said it's going to be burned, apparently. Okay. So it's gone. The land has already been stripped of its trees, including some really fine old apple trees, among others. And new oversized houses will be built on undersized parcels of land, small pieces of ground. And the new occupants of these houses can enjoy the sights and sounds of 2 gas stations, the post office, and especially the new fire station. Then my husband and I drove over to Gibson Street to check out the location for yet another subdivision, which I believe will be discussed tonight. It was a heart-sinking sight. It was a heart-sinking sight to see the ravaged landscape. Also to be chopped up into small little pieces of ground, so more outsized houses can be put there cheek by jowl, just like in any big city. And then there's the Bryson's property on 5th Street ready to be developed. It saddens some of us in Highlands to see its surroundings being chopped up into small city-fied lots. Why anyone would come from a jammed up city and spend a ridiculous amount of money to live in a jammed up place just like what they came from is beyond me. But what's even more beyond me is why we give it to them, meaning why our boards who govern and determine these things seem to say, anything goes, you want it, you got it, no problem, size doesn't matter. You can do a postage stamp thing. It's too bad. Some would say it's paradise lost. Others would say it's money in the bank, and they have the louder voice. Highlands proclaims itself a tree city and a bird sanctuary city. There are signs around town that say so. It's time to remove these signs because they are not true anymore. The trees and the native woods of rhododendron, laurel, dog hobble, etc., are being abolished at a rate that makes your head spin. As for being a bird sanctuary, where do the birds live and nest if not in trees? The loss of habitat Besides birds, includes all the other creatures and critters that live outdoors, but not in subdivisions. Where are they to live? And where are all the climate loss people who are always screaming about the loss of our climate and everything? Trees cool the planet, they absorb carbon dioxide, and they provide you and me with oxygen. Where are all the climate people? Instead of this almost forced guilting people into thinking electric vehicles are the answer and will save the planet, I beg to disagree and offer the suggestion that stopping the whole-scale cutting down of trees is a significantly more important factor in what affects the climate. Consider the Brazilian rainforests. Should they be replaced by electric vehicles? Will that help them? Last point, has anybody in this room been to the landfill on Ridge Gap Road lately? That is where all of our trees and undergrowth shrubs are ending their days, in a mountainous heap high enough to rival the pyramids of Giza. It is a breath-stopping sight to behold, if you've ever gone there and looked at all the rhododendron and our trees that are in the landfill. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other public comment? Hearing none, we will now move on to the next item on the agenda, and that is to review and approve the agenda. We have the agenda posted. Do we have any changes or additions to the agenda?
Move we approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
Second. Any changes? Hearing none. All in favor, please raise your hand. Signify by saying aye. Thank you very much. Okay. The next item will be to approve the January 19th regular meeting minutes. Do we have any additions or corrections or clarifications to those minutes?
I move to be approved to present.
I'll second that.
In a second. All right, all in favor, please raise your hand, signify by saying aye. And I know Commissioner Dawson was not here, so he can approve them. Okay, thank you. All right, and then finally, the approval of the February 3rd special meeting minutes. Do we have any changes, additions to those minutes?
Move they be approved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor, please raise your hand, signify by saying aye. Thank you. Next, we will have the report, starting with the mayor report. So let me just go over, several items, and I believe our town manager will also amplify some of the information that I'll present in these reports. First of all, I want to thank the fire department for their extraordinary effort in battling the fire out on Sagey Woods. That was a major structure fire. And as I wrote in the newspaper today, we used in fighting that fire that first day, almost 250,000 gallons of water. Also want to thank the folks at the water plant that stayed on duty to make sure that the firemen would not run low on water, which did not happen. Other thing I wanted to do is thank our water department crews. Last Thursday evening, I believe, we discovered that on the Franklin Road, there was a sewer leak on one of our main lines. They attempted to make that repair, only to discover that once one would be repaired, another one would pop up. They worked all night trying to get control of that problem. And yes, we did have some sewage that finally ran into Mirror Lake and then onward to Lake Sequoia. Also want to thank Stillwell Enterprises. It was determined that we had a large section of the sewer line that was basically failing. And they came in and worked all Friday, I believe, until about 10:30 that night, replacing that section. I know that Josh and Lamar can address this. We do have concerns about potential other areas that could be failing. And we've hired C.K. Dixon Engineering, their experts, come in and work with us in trying to pinpoint if there are any other sections like we encountered with this problem. So they'll be working with us and we will address those, of course. Other thing that Josh and I will be doing in the middle of next week, we'll get up at the crack of dawn and we will travel all the way to Raleigh to the League of Municipalities Town State Dinner that they hold every year at the beginning of the legislature. At that point, we'll be meeting with our state representatives, Senator Kevin Corbin and Representative Carl Gillespie. They're always there. We'll talk about, the needs we have in Highlands and the needs of the county and Western Carolina. And I do want to say one thing. They've been very supportive of our needs and the requests we've made, and we'll continue that dialogue with them at that dinner. Then the next morning, we will get up and drive all the way back to Highlands. How our representatives do that every week, I can't imagine. It's always a long trip for me. And then finally, that we will be having our March 9th workshop, day of workshops right here. The commissioners, if you would like to, add anything to or think that we need to add something to the retreat agenda, Josh and I will be working on developing that after this meeting tomorrow, starting and up to that workshop time. So let us know. And if anybody in the community has a concern that they would like to see us address at the workshop, a major concern, we'll certainly consider that too. So that is my report. And now I will turn it over to the commissioners for any committee reports or individual reports and updates.
I did want to just say we're working out details for the scholarship golf tournament. We'll more than likely return this October. So I'll have more information that we get closer.
Okay.
I just want to say at the last meeting, we had a request from the Neighborhood Coalition to know where the SDRs are, the current SDRs. And I've spoken with Michael just today, but I've spoken with Michael and he's going to run by what is public record and what can be out in the public by our lawyers. I think a map of it is certainly can be public record. Documentation, no, just a map of where they are probably. So we're working on that.
Okay. And that Mrs. Henson had brought that up at the public comment at the last meeting. Yes. Okay. Any other reports or information? Hearing none, I'll turn it over to our town manager, Josh Ward, for his report.
Well, I did want to inform the board. I found out late this afternoon that we did not get funded for the pre-clarifier tank through the fall cycle of the Division of Water Infrastructure funding that we got funded back in the spring for Dog Mountain, which is moving forward. So there's some other avenues that we can address at the retreat for funding. As you know, at this point, the interest rates are very high. So there's the state revolving fund, which we can possibly go through and apply for, but that'll take some time. So that'll be a discussion we have at the retreat on whether or not to proceed with funding for that project since we didn't get funded. We did score lower than we did on Dog Mountain on that project. It was a 39. And most everything that got funded this fall cycle was at least a 50 to a 55. And most of those were stormwater projects this time instead of water and sewer like that was funded in the spring cycle. So also the two leases, the Charisma radio lease as well as a ham radio lease was not prepared in time to review to get it back for this meeting. So hopefully in the March meeting, we'll have that together for you. I do want to thank, echoing what the mayor said, I do want to thank the water and sewer crews. They had a hard go of it. I know 3 different breaks. They were out all night. They, I think, got home, Lamar, at about 11 o'clock for the first break and was called immediately back in with the second break, worked the rest of the night and stayed at work. I had another break about 9 o'clock, I think, that they started working on. Actually didn't have the parts and pieces. That's another thing that we are lacking is with the supply chain issues that we have. We only have limited parts. So we're very fortunate that Stillwell Enterprises could drop what they were doing and come up and help us. And they had the parts and pieces we needed to repair that leak. And then the next morning, luckily they had about 200 feet of ductile iron pipe, which is very hard to come by right now. And they worked with our crew the next day to replace that section of pipe. So I do want to give a big shout out to all those guys there. And And like the mayor said, the fire department worked off and on for about 3 days on that large fire out in Sagey Woods. It kept, reigniting, and they had to go back out. And I know that first day was at least, 250,000 gallons of water they put on it. And I talked to our ORC at the water plant, and he was saying that Jim Mull had to work 21 hours on that Saturday just to produce enough water so they can make sure that they had plenty to fight that fire with. So you don't see the behind the scenes all the time, but there's a lot that goes into providing water and ridding of your sewer and things like that. So we've got crews that do that and do it very well. So I just want to commend them for that. That's all I have.
Good. Okay. And Josh, I wanted to add, because I talked with Lamar. Lamar's been stockpiling it from here and there, some ductile iron, just as a cushion. Am I not correct, Lamar? Okay.
So how are we going to inspect the rest? I mean, I'm assuming there are other places. There's one of those pressure valve things, and that's what we're going to be looking
Lamar,
for.
do you want to address the issue?
Yes, there is other places that could
That have the same circumstances
have the
as that.
same circumstances and cause us to do a study on those areas. Already working with WK Dixon. They've already sent out a proposal to a contractor to get back to us to do the correct testing it's going to take to test that pipe in those locations. So if that happened late this afternoon, we probably will not get any information back for eventually, because we'll have to challenge.
Okay, so the bid will come back. I mean, they're going to engineer it and then, or do they do it?
It's not so much an engineer that wants to test the pipe and see what conditions it's in. So to do that, we need a contractor to get down and take samples of it. And then we'll analyze that.
And then determine how we proceed.
If we need to.
Yeah.
Replace any, or if so, how much, and replace it with same as, or some other materials, more non-porous.
How many linear feet of line do you think it is? That's or
Won't know until you do the study.
It's areas on each
not
side. of the
replace,
battery.
test. Pardon?
It's areas on each side of the battery lease valve,
Yeah, that's what I thought.
and it's X number of spots determined, from the.
Further away. Yeah. And how many air release valves do we have?
5, 6, 7.
Oh, okay. So it's not like we got 25 over there.
No.
Okay. Well, if it's massive, we got to figure out how to pay for that.
We'll get the price back, and then we'll see what it will cost us to test.
Okay.
Commissioner Hayne and I had this discussion. 30 years ago, the ductile iron was state of the art with the idea that it would last 100 years. But in certain circumstances now, which we had, we're discovering that it's not lasting that
I
long.
made the same mistake with 2 36-inch force mains. I don't fault anybody. That was right. There are different ways to fix it. Tomorrow figure it out.
Yeah.
We could, there's half a dozen ways it could be done.
All right.
I was curious, did you TV the inside of, were you able to TV part of it?
We didn't have the luxury of time.
I understand. I thought it was smart to keep the old wastewater plant open just as a holding thing. I always wondered why it was still there, but that was smart.
Part of the plan, if something like this, this has happened before, a piece of garbage gets driven through it,
Right,
something. You need to be able to cut the parts off and convert it to-
right.
Okay. Thank you, Lamar. Okay, our next item is the consent agenda. You have that in your packet. Does anyone have any questions concerning this consent agenda?
I actually had a question, I think, for Rebecca.
I do too, but go ahead.
Okay, well, we'll go ahead if you'd rather.
No, go ahead.
Let me find it. It was on one of the responses things that we're doing that the auditor recommended. Yeah. And I think it was about the payroll, doing the payroll and entering.
That's what I'm going to ask.
Yeah, and so what, like mine, huh? And I think you said that somebody would be doing payroll and the other person would be putting in any salary changes or rate payment.
Yes.
I think that the point was it takes two eyes. Is the payroll person then look at what the the finance person does?
Yes,
And-
okay, so originally we had a personnel action form and Emily was entering it all, and all we would do is look at the form and sign off on it, me and Josh and a department head.
Uh-huh.
So basically what the auditors wanted was for Emily not to be able to enter the salaries because she runs payroll bi-weekly. So now what happens is she brings down the sheet to me, I enter it all into the system, and then she runs all the payroll. But because she enters all the time sheets and stuff, so there's actually triple the eyes
Okay.
now instead of what there was.
Okay, it just looked like there was a division of duties, but they weren't actually looking at the same thing.
Yes, no.
But
we
they
all-
are looking at the
Yes,
same.
yes, there's a form that we all sign off on. Josh is actually in that circle of signing off this week. So, yes.
Well, there was a similar question, and I know we've taken great pride administratively. We, kind of do double duty, and we've been able to hold down the number of personnel, but we've had that type of response from auditors now for several times about, cross verification and so forth. Is it, and this is maybe a retreat time, is it time to add another personnel, which gives us better
No,
things or
actually,
what?
we lost that finding this year. The only thing that he said we were getting that segregation of duty for was payroll. So now that we have.
It used to be just all your
She used to
financials.
do it all. Emily used to do it absolutely all. So now that we have swapped that out, there is no segregations of duties in our thing. We won't have that finding anymore.
Okay.
So it's actually, he said he didn't know why Martin Starnes was giving it to us ever unless it was because of the pickle. So,
Okay.
yeah,
Oh, okay.
he was pleased.
Okay,
Very good. All right. Any other questions?
I move we accept the consent agenda. approve the consent
Second.
agenda.
All right. All in favor, please raise your hand, signify by saying aye. Thank you. Our next item will be chamber lease discussion. And Kay McCann, the chamber director, is here to start the discussion. Okay.
Good evening, everybody. Let's see, in the fall of 2022, the town of Highlands proposed a change in the 10-year lease agreement between the town and the Highlands Chamber of Commerce, Visit Highlands NC. It is the chamber's understanding that the town was considering a lease renewal change from $1 a year to upwards of $30,000 a year in rent for a term of 10 years. Further, the town would not provide any maintenance for the building or grounds. The chamber's response was that the organization could not, in good conscience, sign a lease to assume rent and maintenance of a 100-year-old building and grounds at 108 Main Street. The town and chamber came to an agreement that the lease would become a month-to-month lease until a solution could be found. We propose the Chamber of Commerce, Visit Highlands NC, and the town of Highlands move forward with a lease for a 10-year term at $1 per year, with maintenance remaining the responsibility of the chamber. The chamber is happy to partner with the town for ongoing expenses that benefit our community as we continue to be in legal compliance and good stewards of the funds entrusted to us by our local businesses and Macon County, North Carolina. Therefore, we propose paying an event usage fee of $500 for each event hosted by the chamber at the Kelsey Hutchinson Founders Park located on Pine Street and at Town Square located on Main Street. We ask that if an event usage fee is instated, the fee would be based and calculated upon multiple uses. For example, organizations that hold 5 or more events in the park and or town square within a 12-month period would be assessed an event usage fee per event. This would prevent additional expenses levied on our small nonprofits holding events in these locations. So looking ahead, the 2023 Highlands Chamber of Commerce Visit Highlands NC calendar of events planned for the park and town square include 2 plateau pickup events, 19 Saturday evening concerts, 23 Friday evening concerts, 1 Independence Day event, 1 Light Up the Park Christmas tree lighting event, 4 Santa in the Park events, and 1 Snowfest event. In total, 51 events over the 12 months are planned for the 2023 calendar year. This agreement provides a prudent use of Highlands Chamber funding, current and future funding, and additional income for the town of Highlands maintenance of the Kelsey Hutchinson's Founder Park and Town Square restrooms. We appreciate the town's consideration of this proposal.
Josh, would you like to start off the discussion? Do you have a comment?
No, the only concern I had, potential concern, and I talked to Kay about this afternoon was, you know, the lease amount of $500 is higher than what we charge anyone else for usage of the park. Now, I talked to Lester, and Lester said that the Friends of Founders Park have commented several times that, you know, it was too low. Our fee schedule was too low for use of the park because of the, you know, the wear and tear to the park that events create. So I'm not saying that 500 is not something that's more reasonable, but as Kay and I talked, you know, they use it more than anyone else. So if we could potentially change our fee schedule for usage of the park for those who use it the most, maybe 5, you know, events or more, to the $500 or even more, that may clear up some of the questions that people may have. Why is the chamber paying this, and why is this, you know, organization paying this to lease out the park? The second thing that was a concern was the 23 Friday night event concerts, which is at Town Square. We don't own Town Square, and we don't own that restroom. The Lepoli's own that facility, and we reimburse them for that public restroom to be cleaned. So Kay and I talked about, there's basically the 28 events that are at the park. They're proposing 500. If they proposed 1,000, that would get them to the mark that they were looking at, somewhere between $25,000 and $30,000, which could go toward the restrooms, you know, is what I think we had discussed earlier. But regardless, it would be paid for in usage fees at $1,000 an event for 28 events, which would be $28,000. You know, again, that's something that the board would have to consider, either a change in the fee schedule for usage of the park. The only thing Lester said that was a concern would be the farmers market, which does use the facility or the park every Saturday for several weeks. I'm not exactly sure. It's a number of weeks, maybe 28 weeks or something, Lester said. They don't close the entire street down. Don't close the street at all. It's just the usage of the park. So they're not using as much of the park, and it's a limited time on Saturdays. So there may be something that could be worked out there. But anyway, that was the two concerns I had with it when I read it. We discussed it this afternoon, but I'll leave it at that.
Well, I think a way you could get around that is I think I don't know about the farmer's market, but that's not the same category as a chamber. Chamber's a 501c5, six. Okay. Not a 501c3. And so you could make the designation that, you know, the Literacy Council is a 501c3, the Land Trust is 501c3, the PAC, Bascom, those are all 501c3s. And so you could make a distinction that way. And so you could have a structured fee schedule. But I honestly think those fees actually go towards the park. Okay. We're talking about fees that go towards all the rest of the infrastructure that happens with all these things that come along. And you're paying a fee to use the park. Why aren't you paying a fee to use the building?
To use the building?
Yeah, a rent to use the building. And so to me, it's much cleaner to just pay, you said it was somewhere around 2,000 square feet, $15 a square foot a year, to pay the $30,000 for the rent of the building. Then you don't have to worry about how many events are going to be there this year or next year, and who pays what fee and that fee, and what are these fees used for, anything like that. Then it's a general fund rather than a recreation fund fee. It comes into the general thing, can be used for recreation or anything else we need to use it for, like the public buildings.
Yeah, I think
So
I think oh, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, we also, I mean, it was You're right, it's a 100-year-old building, and that's why we gave you the initial rent for $1 a year, because we didn't know how much was gonna have to go into that place to make it usable, and how much repair was.
Which
gonna
has
have
been
to
over
go.
$300,000.
Right, and then so if you put in $300,000 over the last 10 years, then you're talking
So
about $30,000 a year. So now you don't have to put that in there anymore.
Hopefully.
Well, I mean, you had the $300,000 was with everything, including.
This was what we had discussed at the prior meeting. We have two sets of funds. We have occupancy tax dollars, which are legislated for use. We have chamber memberships, which is our chamber side of the business. And everything is completely separate to, different accounts, to different QuickBooks, all of that sort of thing. We currently have the funds through occupancy tax that we could pay rent. We don't know if we're going to have that for 10 years. The chamber side of the business cannot afford to take on that expense.
Right.
It's too much money.
It would have to come from occupancy tax, and doing
And
it
we
this
can't
way,
do the whole
100% of it
building.
would come from occupancy tax.
We can't.
Like,
pay
I think
for
this
a-
is an
right.
excellent,
Doing it meaning as a fee schedule?
yes, I think this is a great
So
way
as a
to
rent
meet.
schedule, it wouldn't come 100% from occupancy?
No, this
tax?
way it would come from occupancy tax, but if the chamber is having to pay rent, the chamber is using maybe and I'm not speaking for the chamber, but say they're using that building for 50% chamber business and 50% visitor center, which is occupancy tax. They would have 50% of that money would essentially have to come from the chamber side, and they don't have that kind of money to pay rent on that building. So we need to get it to where 100% of it's coming from occupancy tax. And Kay did a great job putting this together as a way to make that happen.
Right. Don't we need a agreement, Josh? We don't have a lease agreement, do we?
We do.
28,000?
We're just on a month to month right now.
No,
Now it's a month to
10
month,
years.
so we'd have to have a new lease agreement.
Well, that would obviously not be for a lease. We'd have to have that written into the fee schedule, because otherwise that's subject to change.
Well, I think you would
And
have,
that would be specific to the chamber, because you're a 501c6. I can't remember if it's 5.6, not a 501c3, which I think most other
Right.
nonprofits in the community are 501c3s. And that's
Right.
easy distinguishing,
Mhm. And that's a good idea.
We have the previous lease.
we don't have a new lease. Right.
But,
Right.
yeah, but we have that as kind of as a model for the future lease.
Sure.
But then we would need to go back and rework the fee schedule for the park. It would seem to me.
probably your lawyers will need to tell you if that's going to be in the actual lease or.
That's the only question I would
That's
have.
a-
Would you put
that's
that in the
different.
lease?
Yeah, can you not make it
Because
specific to
what
the
if they
chamber?
didn't have 28 events one year? What if it went to 30, or what if it went to 25? Would that hold them to a certain amount of events?
I think
I don't know.
to me, the cleanest thing to do, no matter where the money comes from, is rent.
But you can't, that's what I'm saying, but you can't.
And why not?
Because the chamber, well, I mean, you might want to explain this, but the
Yeah.
Chamber of Commerce is only funded by dues paying members.
I
Okay,
understand that.
so they don't have the money to pay thousands of dollars in
I
rent a
understand
year.
that.
So
But
this is a win-win for both of us, for all of us.
But the occupancy tax money can be used for rent. And the fact that it may or may not be there in the future is neither here nor there, as far as I'm concerned. Rent is rent. It's a line item issue. We don't have to worry about, oh gosh, we're charging the farmer's market X on Saturday morning, and the chamber gets Y on Friday night or Saturday night, and whoever, the car folks pay Z. It's just, I think the gorilla that we're not talking about, and I think Kay's problem is we have not said we will take over maintenance of the building. And I am all for the town taking over maintenance of the building.
The maintenance of the building is not the problem.
Well,
The
that's what it
problem
has been.
is the chamber side of our business cannot afford the rent.
Occupancy tax can't pay
How much?
rent, or it can't pay 100% of the rent.
Mayor, I agree with Brian. So you're gonna get to have a weigh in this.
Well,
Maybe.
well, we're just trying to figure it out. If.
No, I totally
so if the
understand what you're
town
saying.
Took over the maintenance, you still wouldn't say rent was I mean, how much of the building is the chamber in?
It's 20-30% of the building. So we have everything that is a shared expense is broken up between the two businesses. And rent would have to be split between the two businesses, and chamber simply can't afford it.
So you couldn't afford 20% of the rent.
And,
No.
and the other thing too, is
I mean,
if you're having them take
All
over.
it is dues, and our dues are for our businesses are not super high.
I mean, taking over the maintenance of the building too, that's almost not fair because they're the ones that I mean, I know ever since my involvement, I mean, we put a ton of money into that building. The town never would have, they couldn't have, I can't imagine the town putting $300,000 or $400,000 into that building, and they did.
Yeah,
If
but
that's over a period of 10
10
years, the rent actually has not been $1.
It was over 10 years, but
$1 for 10 years.
But you
That
don't
was
know the
amazing.
state of that building. It wasn't over 10 years. It was right. A lot of it was right at the beginning.
I understand that.
Well,
So
she
it's been
gave
a
us the
free
numbers
ride.
and it was $225,000.
Yeah.
That building
Over 10
amortized
years.
for what they put into it over the 10 years, that amount amortized over 10 years is below what the rent income for that building would be to anybody else in this town. I would move my business there tomorrow for $300,000 for the next 10 years.
Well, but if there's a problem with who pays and occupancy tax has the money to pay, and the chamber doesn't have the money to pay, then I'm not necessarily, I agree. I think rent is the cleanest, easiest line item expense way to do it. But if that's a problem for the chamber and the chamber runs the visitors center and does all the rest of that stuff, and we need to find a way that we allow because the chamber used to be in the bottom of the town hall. They just got it for free. So it's one of those things that we can figure out how to do it if that's how it has to get paid for. But I think you have to limit it to things that are on town property, not at town square. Okay. And it is a pain because it'll fluctuate from year to year. And it's difficult for us to make a budget when we're not sure what we're going to get year to year, whereas we are when we have rent. So those are the kind of difficulties that.
So the events are not likely to change. And we do all the community events. We do the Christmas parade and the Christmas tree lighting and, the concerts and Halloween and all of that. As long as we have occupancy tax dollars to do those things, that's not going to change. We're not going to suddenly say, oh, sorry, we're not doing, Christmas tree lighting. Sorry, no more concerts, unless we lose occupancy tax dollars and there's just no money to do it.
And then you'll just cut down the number of events you have, but we'll cut down the number.
We'd have to cut them all because they're all paid through occupancy tax.
Well, you're not going to go, occupancy tax not going to go to zero.
Well, I hope not.
That would be a shock.
But I think we can work around not charging everybody else the same fee we charge the
I think what we ought to do is hold off, get with Lester and come up with a proposal about the fee schedule and how it would apply to the chamber, and then make a decision. I think we have some incomplete information at this point in time, given that we don't own those bathrooms.
Well,
Yeah, we need to take the town square off of
right, you take
the
the town
table
square off.
and
I'm not
just,
sure why. you
it's
don't.
just Kelsey Hutchinson Park.
Yeah.
And why don't you do we're talking about the use of town facilities. So why aren't we doing the Halloween and the Christmas parade.
Well, they're not in the park.
No,
mean-
but they're using town facilities a heck of a lot more than anything else.
Okay. Certainly.
We can factor that in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we also have to factor in, because right now they're paying for what, $250 a month? I mean, $250 a concert. Kelsey Hutchison.
No, we haven't been paying a fee.
Oh, you haven't been paying a fee at all? Oh.
So we're offering.
tell
We
you what.
keep trying to give you money.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think a lot of this started with the concern of occupancy tax and here's the chamber like saying this, we want to do that but this is how it has to be done. And unfortunately, like I agree, rent would be cleaner and easier, but it's not going to work out that way.
Well, it started off with having them pay for some of the things that the town has to pay for because they bring a lot of people into town.
Well, I think we're making forward progress. In the last 3 years I've been here, we're talking about it.
Yeah.
Kay, if the occupancy tax can go towards
Infrastructure, tourist infrastructure.
no, not even infrastructure, for usage of facilities by visitors. And I'm not saying that
Okay.
as cleanly as I'd like to. Why could the chamber not pay out of occupancy tax? Excuse me, not the chamber, visitors, the occupancy tax side, not pay for, because the occupancy tax side seems to me, since what we were originally looking for is help with the bathrooms.
The $40,000
Bathrooms
bathroom.
or tourism, at least 90% driven.
We don't have data on that, so I can't tell you who is a resident and who it is a visitor
I
going
understand
into
that.
the town
I
square
understand.
bathroom.
Yeah, I'm making a generalization because I would bet 90% of the folks that use.
Well, but the county attorney said you couldn't.
So 100% has to be used.
Yeah,
for
I've already
tourist
been
promotion.
told that we can't just like pay you guys for the bathrooms
Right.
at town square.
No, I'm not talking
So-
about paying, I'm talking about maintenance or upkeep.
But we can't just like write you a check for the upkeep of public bathrooms. We can have an event cost. You know, if we're using a space, there is a cost to use that space. I mean, it's the grass, it's the bathrooms, it's the everything within the park. And that's a legitimate expense because we're in there doing an event and using the space. That's easy. But I can't just like suddenly, put in the budget that we're paying for public bathrooms. That's not necessarily promoting
So-
tourism.
So could we, if you
No, it's not promotion, but it's certainly
support,
support.
It seems to
I've already
me,
spoken, the attorney
the
has
attorney
done a
that makes those
great
decisions.
job
okay,
doing research for us and all
so
kinds of stuff.
80% of the building we're talking about is used by the visitor centers. Is that what you said?
Well, with doing Visit Highlands,
Visit Islands things,
Yeah.
right? Exactly. The
Mhm.
big room and the front room and all that kind of stuff. So 80% of it. So why don't we just charge them for rent and not the chamber for rent? And you do it at a different rate. And you don't get, the chamber doesn't just charge. You said they're two separate organizations or two separate boards or two separate,
well, it's same
Charters.
board,
chamber.
but the TDC also oversees the occupancy tax dollar, which of course is county appointed.
Right.
If the lease were drawn up so that it stipulates, the chamber for their portion of the building is not charged or something, and then only a portion of the building that is used for Visit Highlands business, that would probably work.
Yeah, because
Yeah, I
it's
can
just
go
like
back to the
what do I have as
attorney
a-
and ask.
a home office on my taxes. It's the same type of thing. You just use a percentage of the building
Right.
and then we'll figure out what that rental rate is.
Mhm. I can go back to him and ask if he thinks that
I
would
just,
And that's kind of where I was
I
going
think
with.
that's what
with
you're
the-
talking about.
Helping out with the bathrooms coming out of the occupancy tax. It seems to
And
me,
that's
maybe the
what
attorney
you're
says
talking about.
no,
That's who should be
but that
paying
would
for
be
it.
from
Correct, yeah.
that and not the chamber.
And the way we can do it without doing these fees things that varies from year to year is you just get a 10-year and then you know exactly what it's going to be. We
Yeah.
know exactly what it's going to be. And it's just Visit Highlands organization
Right.
space that is rented.
And we can draw that up, the lease that would stipulate that.
And then you don't have all those.
Well,
fee
and then the only
schedules
thing though,
that change.
okay, you'd have to, there might
Let
need
me
to be a
stop and say one
stipulation
other
in there,
thing.
like say if they took occupancy tax away, whether that's gonna happen or not, but that
But
has to
that's
be,
the renegotiation of the lease.
And the other thing we could do.
Which would need to be stated,
yes,
that
definitely.
could be
Hold on.
renegotiated.
In the other side, we could research and let Lester come up with a fee schedule for the park based on, it seems to me, y'all use the whole park all the time, large crowds versus, smaller groups like the farmers market. So we could do both and then come back and make a
Look at both
decision.
options.
Yeah, I think that's fine.
And I can get a hold of the county attorney and see if he thinks there would be any problem with the lease drawn up that way.
And you have a copy of it, and if you could share it
Oh,
with him and see if that could be done, because right now we're in transition with attorneys. Is everybody willing to table this until next month?
Okay.
And in the
For years now.
meantime, you have your month-to-month.
Still have month to month, so we can have
You're not going anywhere.
insurance.
All right, let's move on to the next item. And Kay, you're still here with us, the EV charging station proposal. You have the floor.
All right.
I think
So
we've got some information here.
yes, we have made some progress. First of all, I want to start off with a thank you to Lamar for his research and work that he's done with EnviroSpark Energy on the town sites and regarding the car charges and everything. I really appreciate that. We all know the numbers of electric vehicles is increasing. The report by Bloomberg New Energy Finance shows that by 2040, 58% of global passenger vehicle sales will come from electric vehicles. Today, EV drivers need options for charging at home, at work, while running errands, or simply relaxing on vacation. The concept of electric vehicle use for environmental and economic betterment aligns with our missions, meaning ours as the chamber as well as the town. And with an upcoming campaign that we're doing and developing that's called the Height of Environmental Stewardship, this fits right in. So we are happy to bring a proposal back to the commissioners this evening. After researching and deliberation, the chain board decided to work with EnviroSpark Energy, and we have secured $20,000 in grant funding through the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality, or NCDEQ. The grant rebate, it is for installation of level 2 public access network chargers on property owned by the town of Highlands, with the stations being managed and owned by the Highlands Chamber of Commerce. So the chamber proposes paying for the updates that Lamar presented last month, paying for the updates at the 3rd Street and Oak Street locations as outlined by Lamar in January 2023 town meeting for a total cost of $23,000. We also propose coordinating and paying for the installation of 2 stations at each of these locations for a total of 4 stations. We propose coordinating and paying for the installation of 1 station at 108 Main Street, where the Welcome Center and Chamber offices currently reside, and propose managing and overseeing the maintenance of the stations once the units are installed and operating. And of course, paying for the electric expenses incurred to the town of Highlands.
Okay, so my response is this. What you're proposing, the town incurs no cost. We're simply
Exactly.
saying you can use the parking spaces. Okay. I will say one thing. I like the green initiatives. I'm for them. What concerns me by 2040, if over half the cars that we have on the road
No,
now,
no, half sales.
half the sales,
Not
but,
half the
but, and
cars,
you got
half the
cars,
sales
but
of cars
still,
by that
you
year.
have a lot
That's
of
a huge
cars,
difference.
but yeah, but accumulative, it'll be a large fleet of people wanting these charging stations. I've gone back to this several times, and while I think this is a good gesture, I think to kind of get things going. But in the long run, the private businesses are going to have to, make a big transition to do this, unless we start putting a charging station at every parking meter. This is a
So that means
challenge.
you'd have to put parking meters back in.
That's, yeah, or a parking space, excuse me. So, yeah, I think this is a good thing to do. It doesn't cost the town. I don't necessarily see it as a long-term commitment where you have to keep expanding and expanding. That's another issue to be discussed. But I think there is a national trend where trying to get people to convert to electric vehicles is the goal, and having different charging stations. That's something that every community is doing. Commissioner Hayne and I were talking about this. You might want to say about the some of the short-term rentals that we have and everything, that they're converting over to 50-ounce 240s as an incentive for people that are driving electric vehicles to just come in and plug in. So, that's my feeling. Also, one other thing, rapid chargers. I did a little research in Lamar, if you look at the chart, that's about $80,000 a unit on the high end. Rapid chargers at direct current, anything that goes over 1 hour, 25 miles is considered a rapid charger, but then there are real rapid chargers,
Right.
and you pay for the more rapidness that you want. So,
And those just seem to be like out of the price range.
yes,
They
and
will come down
space
eventually.
range too for where we'd be locating these. Okay,
So
what else you feel?
in your research, Kate, the Tesla station there at the Ugly Dog, how often is that used? And
Oh, gosh, I talked to Thomas about that a couple of years ago. I haven't talked to him recently to know how much is it used. We do have general managers on the chamber board that are general managers of hotels that have them, and they use theirs all the time. Teslas, I mean, all of them. And now they have converters that are always given so that you can use any of them. You don't have to go to a specific charger just for a Tesla anymore. It's an adapter.
And just this week, I think Mr. Musk is going to help proliferate more charging stations on the interstates. But the government is saying you got to get away from that exclusive charging. It needs to be a universal system.
right, it's got to be, there has to be a standard so that everybody can use it. But I mean, if Chevrolet and Ford are going to sell electric cars, they need to get out here and give us some charging stations somewhere around here. To me, anyway, it sounds great, a green initiative, but having thought about it a lot, I mean, I'm not necessarily against it, but I'm not sure how valuable it will be simply because they are level 2 chargers. If you have an all electric vehicle and you're charging for 300 miles, to go 300 miles, there's no way you're going to sit there. That thing is going to sit there all day. If you have, the only other thing that it would be useful for is a plug-in hybrid that have a range of between 30 and 45 miles or so that you could run around town and not have to use your gas. But those are people who are going to be living here. It's the people who come here from distances, but you may have a charging station down there in Franklin or down at the bottom of the hill. You don't necessarily need a rapid one up here. I'm just not sure how much those middle grade chargers are going to be, how useful they're going to be for anybody.
The problem is the cost of the other ones.
I know, but putting
is
anything in, why you put it
prohibitive.
in if it's not going to be valuable, if it's not going to be used?
No, I think there's still a value to it. They still can charge. And my understanding, I don't own, I wish I did, an electric vehicle. My next one probably will be. My understanding is though that you're always like topping it off, we would say with our gas tank, that maybe you only let it go to half a tank and then you top it off, every time it gets to a half tank, that they never run it out for like the whole 300 miles. And it's just, it's viewed differently. It's not viewed like the gasoline. This is just what I've been told.
Right. No, I have a
don't have
brother who has a
personal
totally electric car.
experience. Mhm.
And he says, I can't take it on a trip unless I am going on interstates.
Mhm.
Okay, because you just can't, and sometimes there will be a place to do it. It's there, but there's no place to do it. Sometimes they're out of commission, so it's not a good thing. I mean, a reliable thing right now.
Mhm.
So where I would see it would be the most effective is the plug-in hybrid.
Mhm.
That you only need to plug it in for an hour and a half to get this 40 miles
Right.
kind of thing. I'm not saying that we shouldn't do it. I'm just saying, I don't see it as wow, this is a great thing to do.
I move to approve the chamber's request.
I want to make one
Okay.
stipulation. Huh?
I thought you were through. I apologize.
I know, no. And you can move, but I just want to put stipulation on it, and I need to ask Lamar. I think we're using 6 transformers,
6 for the 2 that were proposed.
3 and 3, and you said we had those in stock. But my question is what are some supply chain going to do? Because we got a couple of subdivisions here right now that could use all those 6 right up tomorrow.
By coincidence, the subdivision won't use pad mounts, whereas these are air.
Yeah, okay,
But-
then maybe not.
The answer, proper question. Yes, it's hard to replace the stock. But that's true for anything.
I understand it. And so what I'm saying is I don't see, I see us as having to put one back and not wanting to wait for it. We want that our stockpile to be used. So not using ours that are already in stock. You have to buy new ones for the charging stations. So we don't have charging stations now. If we get them, great. But we have everybody using, or lots of people using transformers. And if they blow out, we need to be able to replace them. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That you have to buy them new. In other words, we're not going to use ours. Does that make sense?
Perfect sense.
They take them all together.
That's what I mean. I don't want to go out and do it tomorrow and then we need them because we have a hurricane come through or a bad, blizzard. And we have to change a whole bunch out and we can't get them for people who actually need electricity in their house. Anyway, that's all. So that would be my only stipulation. And so you may not get it, next week or anything because we've got them in stock. We're going to keep ours. You'll have to get new ones.
You want to make the motion? You want me to?
No, you can make it. That's fine.
I move we approve the charging stations with the condition that would not be installed until we have, really you'd want new transformers and we use.
Well, we can switch them out, but they got to get.
I'll second that.
You got a second.
We had a discussion.
We've got a second. Do we have any further discussion?
Yeah. I just want to also clarify that if the transformers blow, you'd be responsible for procuring the replacement, not coming to the town of Highlands to grab one of ours and hang it on the pole. Your
I have
transformer
to
up
take
front,
that
your
back to the
transformer
board
from there
because
on.
that means a future expense that they would have to be prepared to take on.
How much is
Or
a
you just-
transformer?
Or you just decommission that one.
I don't know, Brian, I did the estimate, but I don't have it.
How often does the transformer blow?
Transformer don't blow, they go bad.
Okay,
That's the
okay.
And one other thing, Lamar, I think you already answered the question with Amy's question. I already answered my question by Amy. Everything's going to be on the pole. There's going to be nothing sitting on the ground.
Our equipment is on a transformer or on the pump,
Right.
but the equipment for the charger is obviously on the
Right. And then everything's going to be within town right of way, that we do have a right of way and not on private property, most especially the Third Street units.
That's correct.
Okay,
And nothing will block any potential curb cuts in the future for development.
Yes, of course.
Something you need to think about. Who's going to take precedent if a curb cut needs to be made on Third Street to access the Highlands Plaza property?
Would actually be the.
No,
It's the,
other side,
it's
it's
the
rabbit hole.
Oh, it's going to be,
rabbit hole.
oh, okay. It'll be a residential side,
It's a rabbit hole side.
right. Okay,
a little less problem there.
okay. We have a motion on the floor. We've had discussions. They'll look at the transformer issue, replacement. With the idea.
I don't care if we buy them, but we're gonna have them in stock before we give them 3 hours.
Correct. That's understood in the motion. I'm gonna call the question. All in favor, please raise your hand, indicate by saying aye. That is unanimous. Thank you, Jay. We'll get to work on that and we can work with Lamar. Thank you. Okay, the next item, Sunset Rock Estates preliminary plat review. Dustin Hirschfield. Well,
I'll
Michael,
speak
yeah,
first for the
please.
report, but yes, Dustin Hirschfield is here for any questions.
Okay.
So a subdivision application was submitted to the planning department by Dustin Hirschfield concerning a property subdivision request at 10 Gibson Street. The subject lot is 5.29 acres. It's zoned R1 residential and it's located in the watershed 3 balance of the watershed. The minimum lot size required for this zoning and watershed district is 0.75 acres. According to the preliminary plat prepared by L. Stephen Foster and Associates, the 5.29 acre parcel will be split into 5 lots. Lot 1 will be 2.29 acres and lots 2 through 5 will be 0.75 acres. Lot 1 is served by an existing driveway off Gibson Street. Lots 2 through 5 will utilize driveways off Gibson or 7th Street. If 7th Street is used for access, please see Lamar's recommendation in his letter, which is attached in the packet. Also, according to Lamar's letter, all lots will be connected to town water, sewer, and electricity. The Town of Highlands Planning Board reviewed this request and recommended approval of the preliminary plat, and the staff recommendation is to approve the Sunset Rock Estates preliminary plat as submitted.
Okay, Mr. Hirschfield, come on up. And I know there's 2 questions about timing. One is that we are developing Gibson Street. We're having to deal with getting clearance from the state with a sewer line, correct, Lamar?
Water, sewer, all those permits are actually in hand. Process now is bid documents. We also have got notice within the last month, actually, that we could use some grant money towards that project. And we have to get all those things submitted and approved by the funding agency to be able to use it there. So there's some things that are happening to get started before construction.
Okay.
And how that affects Mr. Hirschfield is, utility wise, his project that he don't have to construct it, because the town already started capital improvement in that area. That once it's complete, he will have it. We started that project for, it's here, because we're about to rock. And is now doing a subdivision, was an existing larger tract. Once we complete that project, his utility demands for these projects will be met. So you can't really get a final plat approval until our project's done.
Okay.
That's the utility side.
And Dustin, you understand
I do.
the dynamics there.
Can I
Okay.
ask why you thought it would be better to open up a 7th Street to access them?
It's just a footnote. I noticed that 7th Street was shown on his survey. Yeah, I knew it partially existed. It's partially there, has been for a long time. On his plat, showed it's private. If you look at the old Kelsey map, portion of it may have been on the old Kelsey map, just a very short section. But it appeared to me that access to those lots would actually be easier if that were used. And I didn't know if that was part of his initial plan. I know his plat shows showing driveways coming off Gibson, which are very steep.
Well, actually, they're steep at the end that where the big lot is, but it's not very steep at the other end.
No, it's not.
From where Smallwood hits it all the way around. It's actually better probably there. And the first one that's not the one that already has the driveway is coming off right across from Smallwood there. Yeah, and it's not actually steep there, but
I made a comment. If they chose to use that access for one or any of them, be considered of the fact it would be used as a subdivision road. Because there are lots that don't want to get previously platted that someday will have to be accessed through there. And it might be in your interest as a developer to enhance that road. That's the reason I pointed it out.
yeah, well, and my problem with opening up a 7th Street is you would use part of the Sunset Road, and that is a bad intersection because it's not perpendicular to Horse Cove. And so it's hard to see that. And you also had a lot of pedestrian traffic there. That was my only comment is I'm not sure why 7th Street would be. To me, it looks like topography wise, you're actually better coming off.
Yeah, that's our intention. We're not going to use 7th Street for any of the driveways.
Okay.
There's going to be retaining walls back there, and there's going to be nowhere for a driveway to go.
Yeah.
So it's not our intention to use 7th Street at all.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions? Oh, Dustin.
I have a question.
Yes.
On the minimum requirements for subdivision plat, number 14 calls for topographic contour lines at 5-foot intervals. Lamar, is there any reason those aren't on this plat? Or a statement by the surveyor saying that no roads within the subdivision exceed 14% grade? I don't see that statement on the plat.
Is that roads or is that driveway? I don't think it's driveways.
It wouldn't be the road. That would be for subdivision road.
Well, topographic contour lines at 5-foot intervals when the area to be subdivided exceeds 2 acres or has proposed streets which will exceed 800 lineal feet, or alternatively, a statement by the surveyor on the plat that no roads within the subdivision exceed 14% grade. There's none of that.
Yeah, no topo, and that's not, that's the surveyor, and that's me not getting him to put it on there, keep the preliminary plat looking plain, but the surveyor would pull the Macon County, because I've talked to them on how they do it, they pull the Macon County data for that we can all access off GIS websites. So that's something that I can get supplied, but have aerial and post subdivision with 2-foot intervals, which is about to apply on there. They use exactly what Macon County does.
That's fine. I don't think, I would be surprised that a surveyor would use what the county comes up with, because the county's not physically on the property.
Minus known passive, they have, just from talking to one or two of them.
Well, if they're using LiDAR data, it's pretty dang accurate.
Just like they use the FRIS data, flood mapping that they statement.
Okay.
It may not be 2-foot, but it's definitely
Yeah,
5 foot.
and that's fine, but still, none of these requirements are on this preliminary plat. That's my
So you,
only comment.
so you want them on there before we approve? the
Yes.
plat? Okay.
Well, that's one of the requirements we've stated.
Well, I think the 14%, Michael, correct me if I'm wrong, are for roads. There's no road construction here.
Yeah, it is for the subdivision. road.
These are just driveways.
Yeah. It does require in the ordinance to have topographic lines on there. It's just something that's much of water prior to looking at these things.
Yeah, when you put contours on here, Buzz, it's to the point where you can't see anything. You can't see lot lines. It's difficult to see anything. Really, the things that you need to see, you can't see because they're contour lines. I mean, you know by going out there exactly what the contour
Because the
is.
property is so steep.
Could be.
Okay.
If it's flat, obviously you're not going to have any contour lines on there, but most everything around here is steep. So,
it's not flat.
or not flat. So I think that's where,
Yeah, no, I understand that completely.
It's the right of way of Gibson on the western side of the street. I mean, right where I mean, it's only a single lane road.
Gibson Street is what it is. It's town street as we speak.
Well, I'm talking about the house that's there, that's essentially on the right of way, right? The one that's just off Horse Cove, not the Allen one, but the next one. The yellow one.
Where it is in relation to the right of way.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's basically is, well, you see.
Yeah, the
Yeah, I mean,
the
yeah,
actual, the existing house.
The existing house.
It's from like the Sunset Rock parking lot to Smallwood. That stretch that's right there, the house is back in.
Oh, no, not your property, property on Gibson across the street from your property.
Oh,
Okay, well, I'm just trying to figure out it's where the actual right of way is in there. Is the right of way at that house, and that means the other 40 is on your property?
so my understanding was it'd be from the middle.
No, sometimes it's not in the middle of
Sometimes
the
it's
right
not,
of
but if
way.
you can see it staked out there.
The
from
right of way?
Survey, yeah.
Okay,
Mhm.
The right of way is Gibson.
huh?
The right of way is Gibson. It's
I'm
on.
not sure if they give it measure.
I don't know, that's what I'm
I
saying.
think it's being pinned. You had your survey. And
Mhm.
then Fox family had their survey for other reasons.
Mhm.
We just built the house.
Yes.
We're actually fine.
Yeah, you can find all the pins are marked in pink. Mhm.
Well,
See, the road winds around within
Yeah,
the survey.
I'm talking about this section of road here between Horse Cove and Small, where that house is right here. It's essentially on the road.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is if for any reason we have to expand that road, it's all gonna have to be uphill. Because we can't
Yeah,
use,
you can't plow their house.
right, exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
And I don't, and that's, but not every road around here is actually in the middle of a right of way.
Yeah, then the road is pretty wide. 2 cars can go by currently. I pass them every day. So
Well,
it's wider than
we're-
most, I'll say that.
Huh?
It's wider than most.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure that's true. I mean, I happen to live nearby and I just don't know that, and I've walked out a lot. I don't know that that's true, but that was my concern is that you know that
Yeah.
that road may not be in the middle of the right of way.
And that's fine.
And
There's
so
so
you
much
may not
space.
have just
Yeah.
10 feet onto your land if that road ever has to be widened.
Yeah, and on it, and then to my land, I mean, there's almost 250 feet to the house
Oh, yeah.
from that road. So if they had to take 10 or
A little
15
bit,
feet,
yeah. Okay.
it is what it is, you know, we're fine.
Beth, would you entertain a motion if we had a contingency that a total amount would be produced that meets the 14% grade concern that you have?
But it's the
Well,
total.
from what testimony has been, there are no roads within the subdivision that would apply to.
Okay.
So that's neither here nor there. My concern is that one of our minimum requirements is topographic lines at 5-foot intervals without all the other things, and that's not on the plat. So logistically, I can't approve the plat because it hadn't met the minimum standards.
Okay.
Well,
Not trying to hold up construction.
well, I was gonna
or
say,
anything,
I mean, we're gonna have to wait till our project gets completed anyway.
Yeah,
So
we
it's
have-
gonna be a month late.
Yeah, I mean, we have the map and we have an email from Stewart stating a 14% grade too. So we have all those things to produce for you. So they're just not on the survey for the reasons stated.
Well, I think we could, personally, I think you can approve it contingent upon you supplying that
I can email it
to
to
our
Michael tomorrow and
development
it's
director.
done.
It's a requirement, yes, but it's not something that's gonna change whether we do or do not approve it. I guess you're more of a rule follower than.
but- Yeah, no, but we make these requirements for a reason. And we have run into scenarios in the past where things have slipped under the rug
We didn't realize.
and we just, oh my God, now what do we do?
Okay.
So, I'm certainly not trying to hold up construction. I would like to see, because I haven't been out there and walked around on the property, I'd like to see, obviously, the topography well enough that you feel comfortable in putting the driveways up from Gibson
There's no issue with the driveways.
to the top.
Zero. I mean, it's easy. Where these 3 driveways are gonna go, it's not steep at all. So you have to pick and choose which parts of Gibson you go up for each lot.
Right.
But on each lot, there's a very easy access for the driveway. It's less than 14%, and they're all gonna be paved anyway. So there's that too.
Yeah, I walked it today and it was, I would definitely go in from Gibson
Okay.
as opposed to up from above.
That's exactly the opposite of what I've heard.
No, because there's only steep places in that first big lot. And everything else from Smallwood on is
Yeah.
almost,
The first one I'm keeping for myself. So there's not gonna be a house there.
but
But it's,
we're fine. We'll postpone it till, Mr. Mayor, should
Okay,
we postpone it so that all our requirements are met?
I think that's what Buzz wants. What's the pleasure of the board on this?
If it doesn't hold anything up, that's fine. We'll just come back next month and do it.
Dustin,
get your contour lines next month and. Yeah, it's cool.
that's the feeling of the board.
You know,
We'll proceed. That one. Go ahead.
one thing that I don't think is clear, Alice was talking about holding things up, but Michael, if they complied with all our regulations, they have a right to develop. I don't think people understand. We don't have we can say, well, we don't like that. You can't do it. If they comply with our regulations, they've got the right to go ahead.
Absolutely.
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item would be item number 12, sanctuary on First, phase 2 preliminary plat proposal. I know we've got Jeff Weller here, and Michael, will you do the introduction?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So a subdivision application was submitted to the planning department by Sanctuary Developers LLC concerning a property subdivision request at 65 Oak Street. The subject lot is 2.50 acres, zoned R2 residential, and is located in the watershed 3 balance of the watershed. The minimum lot size required for this zoning and watershed district is 0.50 acres. According to the preliminary plat presented by Aaron Garrett Land Surveying, the 2.50 acre parcel will be split into 5 half-acre lots. Each lot will have its own driveway and will be served by a subdivision road. All lots will connect to town water, sewer, and electric. The town's Public Works Director, Lamar Nix, has reviewed the engineering, and his letter is included in the agenda packet. The Town of Highlands Planning Board reviewed the request and recommended approval of the preliminary plat. The recommendation is to approve the sanctuary on First, phase 2 preliminary plat as submitted. And I have Jeff Weller here if you have any questions.
And you approved the phase 1 previously, correct?
Yes, phase 1 preliminary has been approved, and I'm pretty sure they're getting close to the end of that. So coming back for phase 2.
So where's phase 1 and where's phase 2 on?
Between lots 6 and 7 and between lots 3 and 11. It's the vertical line.
Okay.
Sorry. It's right there.
Okay.
Everything over here is phase 2.
I had a question. There was something about it wasn't going to be gated if you ever did phase 2. Is that right?
Pardon me?
You were going to gate phase 1, but if you got phase 2, it wasn't going to be gated? Or
No,
was
it's
my
going to be
memory wrong?
gated both ends.
Is that right?
Yes.
No, I think what I remember is the cul-de-sac. And then if you phase
Well,
2, we won't have the
I
cul-de-sac.
want to point out, we actually had a hammerhead as a turnaround on phase 1, and that's why we show the whole plat. So between lots 3 and 6, which is the 0.5 and 0.51 right in the middle of the property.
Right.
Okay. So this is phase 2. There was right here, there's a hammerhead in phase 1, which phase 2 would negate.
Right. Maybe that's what I was thinking about.
Thus, do we have the contour issue on this too?
We do.
Actually, we do not. I have full engineered drawings. You have water, sewer, utilities, power, technology, grading, drainage,
In the first phase?
construction retention for both phases. You have those. We have 2-foot contours provided in the engineering drawings. And we have no roads over 8% grade.
They're just not in our packet.
I don't
No,
know
no, that's,
that.
but you
But
provide.
you do, the town does have that. Lamar has all of that.
And that's what his letter, so Lamar is engineered.
Yeah.
I do not put the contours,
Pardon me?
and I do not put the contours, it's not what I.
Well, the engineer laid it all out and confirmed in his, we have a 6-page engineering package of all of the infrastructure, the roads, the drainage, the ditching, the construction retention, everything. Correct.
Okay,
Because that many houses, that much impervious surface is going to create a lot of stormwater.
Correct. And I don't know if you've noticed all of the construction that has been happening on kind of between the fire department and the nursery. When we did this, we got an easement that's shown on here down the property line. And we've actually run storm drainage. We have retention on the property, but then as the retention builds up in an extreme case, then we have large pipe drainage that takes us all the way down to the storm drainage on Main Street. That's what the tie-in was in front of the fire department. That has been completed.
I'll move to approve this as presented.
Second.
second. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I have a comment, I guess, for staff. In the future, I'd like to see preliminary plats that have all of the requirements on them so that we know at the meeting without having to hope that they're somewhere in a file.
And that somebody's looked at them.
And absolutely. Lamar, I certainly trust your judgment to a degree. But your judgment isn't our responsibility. So
We have to sign our name on it.
yeah, when we see these plats, they need to be ready to go.
And the preliminary plat at Lamar, that one falls on me, so from now on, yes, we'll have that. I think number one on that list is to have 25 printed copies, so I'll have everything on it. That was something, there's certain things that have waived that we've done without before, just because it wasn't reasonable, but absolutely. We'll check off.
Okay, any other questions before I call the vote? We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please raise your hand, indicate by saying aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, number 13, the Episcopal Church parking change proposal. And again, Jeff, I guess you were on.
Is there any way we can get that one up there?
It's coming.
And probably slide 3 and then to 4 would probably be the best ones, depending on what order they're in.
Sorry.
Oh, you're fine. Is it in the package?
No,
Okay.
I have it in a different place.
Okay.
Sorry.
You're fine.
Which one do you want?
The first overhead, the existing
There it
overhead,
is.
it's the easiest one.
They just had the overhead.
Yeah, rather than the plan.
Yeah. Go back to
And
the
then we can
overhead.
backtrack. So everybody recognizes this. This is the, sorry. This is the Episcopal Church. And, you know, the renovation now is complete on the church. The main entrance to the church is right here to the sanctuary. So after church, people spill out here. And when they spill out, you basically have a 5-foot sidewalk, 5.5-foot sidewalk. And then you're off into parking. And as you can tell, this is an old spot because ever since the road was paved, that has not been remarked. But this is the layout. So what we're proposing is to remove these 2 parking places There's a phone box here. This power pole at some point in the past few years has been moved over to here. And if you go to the next slide. What we are proposing is to take those two spots displaced, move them over here, same dimensions, same everything. The phone box still stays in place, the power pole stays in place, there's a guy wire, it works. And then just proposing a widening of the sidewalk, and then the church would actually grass and have two street trees located in that location. Because right now, when you walk out of the church, even while I was meeting with them, somebody came pulling in here to park, and I was about that far away from getting my knees clipped, just standing there. So you can imagine on a Sunday morning if the sidewalk is full. So we're trying to make it a little bit more of a safer situation without having any loss of parking. So it's a net zero parking situation.
Jeff, I don't know if you can address this, but is the church willing to pay for this
Yes.
construction?
Correct.
Okay.
And also work with Lamar, because if you can go back one, I'm sorry.
The storm drain.
Go back one slide, I'm sorry. Right here, you can see there's kind of there's a curved inlet. That's actually, I mean, it's little kid fall in size right now.
Right.
So there still is gonna need to be a curb inlet. We're gonna have to work with the drainage, we're gonna have to work with Lamar on how we still run that drainage. And we'll do what the town needs in order to tie back into storm drain properly. But that right there is currently a storm drain, but they are proposing to pay for it, do the work.
I move we approve the request from the Church of the Incarnation.
I have some questions.
Okay.
When you move the parking, how close is that to the library exit? I mean, are you going to be, to me, it looks like it presents a visual problem seeing down Main Street.
Understand? Can you go to the CAD images?
And I'm not sure, I don't have any dimensions on there. So, I mean, if that car pulls out, he's going to be in that driveway. You don't have it on that drawing.
Well, the driveway, no, I don't have that drawing. The space from here to their driveway is about 35 feet, roughly 35, 38 feet. It still is. It's more than any corner on Main Street. Any turning corner on Main Street from parking.
It still is, to me, it's a sightline problem though, coming out. We don't have any other exits like that. They don't have stoplights or those kind of things there. And it's just.
Well,
It's harder
DOT
to
has a
see.
design standard, don't they?
You do it across the street. You have one right across the street
Yes, sir.
that does the same thing. That one has about a 10-foot separation from parking to egress from the falls.
Yeah, but they're egressing, they're pulling out the different direction.
Okay.
Yeah, they're not pulling out across the driveway. They're pulling out away from the driveway.
Jeff, they're meeting DOT.
If you're going left, you're doing the same.
Oh, for sightline, yeah, but not pulling out. Yeah, pulling out of the parking place, pulling out of the parking place.
Parking place, understand.
DOT has a design standard for that. You're complying with that.
Yeah,
You have to be a certain distance from the curb.
well,
Curb
yes,
cut.
certain distance of curb, but in those cases, the only thing that applies to is intersections.
Right.
And this is really not considered an intersection, but we do comply. Like if this was a road intersection, this complies with the road intersection that the town would require if we were coming out of a shopping center or something like that. For them.
Well, they've got a design standard for curb cuts too. You have to be a certain distance from that.
Correct.
And you're complying with that.
Yes.
Any other questions?
I think the other problem that I have is for 4 hours a day, once a week, we're basically giving something on Main Street, something that nobody else has.
What do you mean by that exactly?
I mean, it's when they let out church on Sunday morning.
We gave it to OEI.
Here's what I would
No, we
say
didn't
though.
give it to OEI. OEI is big old.
That big launch ramp out their front door.
No, OEI is because that is a big intersection. You can't have parking there. And OEI, we gave them valet parking to try and get more parking off of there, and that's what that was for.
I hear what you're saying, yes,
I mean,
but we're not losing parking spaces.
Yeah, but can a restaurant do that and put parking somewhere else in town?
If they were to pay for 100%, it makes sense.
If
I
it
would
met
say.
the standard.
So this one does, and then that one does, and then that one does, and suddenly we only have a little bit of parking on Main Street because it's all off to the side
Well,
somewhere where somebody else is put. This is a principle. This is a precedent for 4 hours a day, 4 hours a week. That they need that they could block that off and not have it be permanent.
I think it's unusual. You're gonna have like 200 people coming out of church, just like that, gathered on the sidewalk.
And they built their church
Well,
knowing that that was gonna happen.
Can I ask a question? You said that blocking it off. I'm not sure I understand what.
Well, you said you were standing there and somebody almost clipped you because they came in to park. So you block off the parking like they do now for handicap. And then you can step off the curb and the 200 people have an even larger space to go because it can come all the way to the travel lane.
I understand, but then they're standing at the travel lane. I mean, I understand what you're saying, but I'm not arguing,
Yeah, I'm just saying, 250 people, that's not gonna, that much more is not gonna hold 250 people. A whole parking space, through 3 parking spaces would. Or hold more than that. And plus it's a principle. Do we start saying, okay, and this is built in the last few years. This is not OEI who was jammed up there and they had what they had and they have to deal with what they have. This was built in the last 2 years and they chose to build and they knew people were coming out of there 4 hours a day, 4 hours a week. And we're going to put that as a precedent or as a say it's okay. So what is the next one? So suppose a restaurant wants to have a place for patrons to wait. Do we give them 2 parking places? And if they'll put some more down somewhere else, we have.
Well, I mean, I know what you're saying, Amy. I think though here you're just moving them. I mean, you're not moving them down the street. I mean, I think that you look at this as a case by case basis, and I like the fact too, we're getting 2 more trees on Main Street. I like the plan. I mean,
well, we're losing one.
I will say there's a 6-inch tree that was planted very recently. That is, it's currently about
right there.
Between the box, about right here.
Yeah.
So we're replacing it with 2 and additional green space and breaking up the parking, but.
Amy, to your point, I think I understand what you're saying. To me, what we're doing is, I don't think there's an opportunity for this to happen anywhere else in town. I mean, I don't think a restaurant's going to, there's nothing, maybe where one of the trees are, but you're literally shifting parking places or green area up or down the street a little bit.
Well, but you're shifting parking because you are giving them something that nobody else has.
Well, I don't deny that.
And so if you go to back to the basic principle is nobody else gets to have a wide sidewalk in front with trees. They could put them there and we say no. And we're not losing any parking, and I understand that, but they're still getting something that nobody else has an opportunity to get.
So would you propose then on Sunday morning that they block off 2 parking places?
Yeah. That to me is the simplest way to do it. And then, they can step off the curb or they can build little platforms so it's all level. So whatever they want to do.
But then what is the difference? Because we're not gaining or losing.
Because it's 4 hours once a week.
Okay. Where is the closest handicapped spot?
Well,
it's around the corner.
The handicap spots are actually at the other end because the handicap entrance is the other. If we can go back, sorry.
Okay.
It's a picture. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's at the other
So there'd be no advantage whatsoever to have a handicap spot
no.
at this location.
No, well, no, there's not enough room for it. There's not enough room without increasing parking.
Bingo, bingo.
Yeah, well, but here's, I mean, I want to point this out though, because I think this is beautiful. One thing that makes Main Street, I walk Main Street all the time. And this is great. I mean, I don't know how that came about. I don't know, you know, signs basically in the middle of the sidewalk. And then you have the sidewalk and circle around it. Those little details just also increase and improve the aesthetics of walking downtown. And this is kind of, I call this kind of pre-downtown. You go to an intersection, then you are the heart of downtown. Because this is, you know, B1 starts at the next intersection. This is.
I believe that's B1.
Pardon me?
I believe that's
Is that
B1.
corner now B1?
Yeah, that'd be one.
Okay. Okay. Just across the street is not B1, is it?
Over.
No.
No.
No,
Not in front. Well. Like I said, aesthetically, this is much, much nicer, and I'm not talking about for the church, I'm talking about for the street. But functionally, it functions exactly the way that it does now from a parking standpoint. It just doesn't.
Okay, with that slide, you've got the creek there. It goes under the sidewalk. Oh, yeah, the creek, it goes under the sidewalk. So basically that part of that green space there is fronting the property of the Episcopal Church.
What, I'm sorry.
Okay, if you drop right there, underneath there, the Episcopal Church owns all that property on that side.
Correct.
Okay, and then the town owns that property, but that part of that green space fronts the property or is right in front of the property of the Episcopal Church by the creek. In this case, the request is just to slide the green space over to where you have 2 parking spots. Yeah.
Is it not a strict property belongs to the Catholic Church?
Yeah, the Catholic.
Was that the
Church
Catholic
owns
Church?
the street.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's true.
This, I think one of these plans actually shows the property line, that landscape.
Well, I'm not arguing that it would make that
The creek itself
nice
is-
looking. I'm just saying that this is something that as we need contour lines to, so things don't slip by us, you got to think about what this means long-term. If we start saying, okay, yeah, you built your building right on the sidewalk and so you need more room, so we'll give you some public land to use 4 hours a week.
But Amy, I think it's an eyesore, what we got there now, and they're trying to improve it. You know,
And I'd be willing to listen to the other proposals if there was a spot where this made sense, but I think you deal with them on a case by case basis. I don't think this has to set precedents.
Well, I hadn't thought about it until Amy brought it up. And they built this to be what it is within the last 5 years. And so now they have a problem which wasn't thought out before. One of my concerns, I guess, stumbling block to not doing this would be if there's no good reason not to have, if you've got 250 people coming out that door, and I have not been in the building through those doors, so I don't know whether it's handicapped accessible or not. Is it?
Yeah.
That particular door?
Yes.
Yes.
Then why would you not want to have, if that's the ingress and egress from that building, why would you not want to have a handicap spot, but dead in front?
but Jeff, there's steps right at the entrance. You go in and there's steps.
It's around the corner.
Right, yeah, but I mean, where he's talking about, you can't, there's no point putting handicap right in front of it.
It's around the other side.
Right.
Oh.
But that door where you've got the bump out in that picture is not handicapped accessible.
There's steps there. When you walk in the door, there's steps there. You have to go up to the
That's-
second level.
Yes or no? And it's
Yeah.
handicapped accessible or not?
It's better where he's got it now, where you have the ramp they just built. You can walk in at ground
No.
level, you can get to the
It's
elevator.
not, obviously. Okay.
It's not.
So to me, at that point, my thought in doing this is to make it a more usable scenario to different folks. If it's not handicapped accessible, then I may be with you, block off parking places for 2 hours, for 4 hours a week, call it done. Because they did build it exactly, they built their own monster.
Well, yes, like they're asking forgiveness now. Will you give me something because I did it wrong?
They were very,
I was gonna say, if you want, which you wanted the building sidewalk, and I understand that you could have a buffer, you could pull back, you could do whatever.
You can, but you control that.
This is a great improvement.
it is, yeah.
It's
I would-
pretty lacking. I'm not talking about the building, the building's beautiful, I'm talking about the streetscape, the parking, everything, it's a straight shot of asphalt. And I hate to say, it's exacerbated by the fact that it goes across the street and goes all the way to the grocery store. There's not a green spot at that spot, so this
Right.
starts bringing a little bit.
Yep, but your green spot is moved, what, 15 feet from where it is now?
The what, I'm sorry?
Your green space is moved 15 feet from where it is now.
It's moving more like 25 to 30.
Okay, it's moved 30 feet from where it is now, but that doesn't mean there's no green space there. It's just 30 feet closer down the road.
I understand.
And you can put two big trees there
Further down.
on what's there now, is what I'm
There's one
saying.
there
See
now.
there? There's
There's
green
a tree
space
right
there,
there.
exactly. So what I'm saying is that's exactly, you're just moving it. The green space is already there, the trees are already there. You're just moving it. So I'm not sure that it's improving it so much. It's improving the entrance of the church, but that's not the streetscape.
You know, it's a growing church. They just added daycare. They're trying to help the community. They're trying to improve Main Street. They working with what they got. Unfortunately, they sold so much land to the Catholics, they just kept a little bit. And as they've grown, they're trying
was a
to
while ago.
accommodate.
Okay. I think we've discussed this thoroughly. Commissioner Hayne, you had a motion on the floor without a second.
I've got a second.
And we got a second now. Before we take a vote, do we have any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please indicate by raising your hand and signify by saying aye. Okay, opposed? We have a split vote. In 10 years, the mayor will have to vote to break the tie. And I vote for approval.
Thank you, man.
Thank you. Thank you.
Just want to clarify, you voted yea, correct?
Yes, I did. All right, the next item is number 14, snow plowing of private roads. We reviewed this and developed a policy as a board concerning steep grades on private roads. I think there are 5 or 6 that have been identified by our town engineer. Those letters went out and I received numerous concerns and feedback. And on this agenda, I decided that we would need to have this on the agenda. And I've asked that it would be put on there. And I know we have Stephen Osmercourt to come, and he would like to address the board about that policy. And Stephen, it's your floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm Steve Osmercourt. My wife Sherry is back here. We live up on Worley Road, on one of the 6 roads that was identified and voted upon back in October. I learned about this when I read something in the Highlander paper and started getting a little concerned. I'm here speaking not only on our own behalf, but also on behalf of the Satula Vista Community Association. It's a small HOA of about 6 houses that live up on this affected portion of the road. And I think there are a few other houses up there that are not part of our HOA. And at least one of the folks that lives there is also here this evening. Basically, three areas of concern regarding this decision I'd like to raise. The first is what happens in the event of a medical emergency. The second is basically talking about what is too steep. Why is at least Worley Road, which is the one that I know something about. I don't really know about the other 5 roads, nor am I empowered to speak on behalf of those communities, right? But why is Worley Road too steep? And talk about standards a little bit for that. The third is what I hope is an easy issue, which is the question of pre-treating rather than just plowing. I want to address that as a separate issue, pre-treating of the roadways. I found out, as I said, in the Highlander, by reading a quote from the mayor who described these, the fact that there were 6 roads that were not going to be plowed, or portions of 6 roads. And he said, quote, "In the event of a medical emergency, town crews will work with EMS staff to ensure emergency access to these sections." Now, I immediately got concerned. We all know when folks have a heart attack or a stroke or fall and hit their head and have a brain bleed or something, that seconds can matter. The town emergency medical services have a pretty good reputation for good response times. But if we have a snowstorm or a snow event and these roads aren't plowed, and a call goes out, 911 call goes out on Tuesday morning at 2 a.m. and say, "Hey, okay, my wife's having a heart attack, we need the ambulance here," then the plan is, as I understand it, is that the town will call the tow truck drivers, get them out of bed, and try to arrange access for the ambulance. I can't imagine any scenario, no matter how efficient everybody is, that wouldn't involve a significant and potentially life-threatening delay of time, right? If public safety is the first priority for the town, then going with a policy that builds in a delay for EMS response may not be the best approach. And I would ask y'all to consider that problem. Second point, I looked at the second issue. I looked at the minutes of the town board meeting in October, and it's, let's see, where's the quote? It said it identified these roads as, quote, "too steep / dangerous for town equipment." Now, I don't understand what the standard is for that determination. I just heard discussion of approval of a new subdivision where roads are permitted up to 14%. I don't believe that Worley Road exceeds 14% at any point. I drove it today with my Jeep, which has one of these things in it that tells you what the grade is, you know, when you're going. And it's 12% was as steep as it got. So I don't understand why Worley Road would be too steep to be plowed. I really don't. And we're trying to understand the reasoning of the town, and maybe y'all can help us with this. I went to Little Bear Pen and found a place that was 13%. I drove on Holt Knob and it's similarly steep. So why is it safe to plow town roads that are this steep, but not safe for the equipment of the town to plow private roads that are similarly steep? Additionally, Worley Road has been plowed for decades. It's been safe in the past. Why is it not safe now? The mayor in the paper, and when I went and met with Lamar, who's kind enough to chat with me, and Lamar recommended, and I think the mayor suggested that folks should hire private contractors to plow these road sections. And so Lamar was kind enough to give me a wonderful recommendation with John Sherrill. And John Sherrill has plowed our road a couple of times this winter at our expense. And I asked him, is our road dangerous? Is it difficult to plow? He said, no, it's not a problem at all. He said that it's as steep. He's got other roads that are as steep or steeper. And so I guess another question is, we're trying to understand, why is it safe for private contractors to plow, but not for the town to plow? Now, John Sherrill did say that he likes to get out and plow shortly after the snow falls, right? Before people have driven on it, because it's easier to contend with, right? Which gets me to the next issue, which is, I think, a few years ago. Again, I've only been on Satula since 2018. We've only owned our house since then. Although there's been a lot of turnover, we're the second most senior folks in our neighborhood. It's only being there since 2018. But as I understand, the council changed the priority some years ago and said that town roads will be plowed first, and then private roads will only after that will private roads be addressed. And so I can't help but wonder if some of the issue of why it wasn't a problem before, but is now, whether that it might at least partly be the result of the delay in time to address a steep road like ours. Because last year, I know we had a snowstorm. It was a big event, 12 inches, town was overwhelmed. It took 4 days for the town to be able to reach our road. And by then it had turned to ice and it was very difficult, I'm sure. Lamar tells me that, and the mayor has told me, that there have been property damage issues and near injuries, and I have no doubt that that's true. But my question is it because of the inherent dangerousness of these roads, or at least of Worley Road, or is it because, perhaps in part, either there was a singular event like last year, or because of a delay in addressing the issue, right? When I was a kid, I used to mow lawns, and I remember for extra money, I remember complaining to my mom, our lawnmower is not good enough. It gets clogged up when I'm mowing the grass, right? And she was like, well, if you didn't wait 2 or 3 weeks to mow it, you wouldn't have that problem. And she was right, okay? It was my fault. And similarly, if there's a significant delay in addressing a steep road, addressing a snowfall, it's going to be a hazard. But is the hazard due to the steepness of the road, as the minutes of the town board meeting suggest? Or is it perhaps partly at least due to the town's decision not to address the private roads for some period of time after a snowfall? And again, what's the standard? I looked at the town of Maggie Valley, who posted their standards for plowing private roads. And they said they will not plow a private road if it exceeds 18% in grade. Well, our road's 12%. Why can the town of Maggie Valley plow a road that's 18%? The town allows subdivisions to have roads that are 14%, but our road, which is 12, at least from what I can tell as a layperson with my little deep measuring, why is our road too dangerous to plow? Just don't understand. Lastly, the issue of pre-treatment. The town is, I talked to Lamar about this, and I asked him if he would, when the town decides to pre-treat private roadways and public roadways in advance of a snow or ice event, I asked him if he would consider pre-treating our roadway as well, because there could be no danger to town crews or equipment to drive on a road that doesn't have snow on it, right? And he said he would consider it, and it hasn't been done this year. When the mayor was kind enough to speak with me recently and indicated to me that he thought perhaps Lamar was constrained by this board's vote in October withdrawing snow removal services from these roads, right? To me, I don't understand. I can't see any justification for discriminating against these roads for purposes of pre-treatment in advance of the snow event. You know, what possible justification could there be to treat these roads differently than other private roads with respect to pre-treatment? So if nothing else, I would ask this body to reconsider that issue as well and clarify whether pre-treatment is appropriate for these roads. That's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Let me respond since I was quoted, okay?
Please. I'll stay here if you want, if I can
whatever,
give more input. It's up to you.
First of all, we've always had a priority of road plowing. The state has a priority. And in North Carolina, there are 3 types of roads. There are state roads, which are secondary, primary highways and so forth. And then there are town roads, and then there are private roads. The state does not plow private roads in Macon County. With that said, our EMS, which is a county operated unit, they have the ability and go through, private roads if there's an emergency call. Our response is it's not bringing in tow trucks, but we do have, in a snow event, we have road crews with plows and everything. If there was a situation where that was an emergency, the idea would be that they would be called in if the ambulance could not get somewhere and provide assistance in getting there, or our rescue units with our fire department. So that's just one observation. And again, I think the board, and it really gets down to what we were talking about tonight, and that is with the sanctuary on First. That's going to be a private road, and homeowners association that will maintain that road. Yes, we have done maintenance of roads, private roads in the past, back 30, 40 years ago. I think that the town was kind of laid back and cooperative, and the idea was to provide, maintenance to private roads and so forth. But as we have grown and people have come in and taken up residence, the demands on trying to maintain private roads, and maybe it shouldn't have been done in the first place. But the idea is, I think, that private roads are under the control of homeowners, and that's why we are kind of pulling back on a lot of type of maintenance on private roads. So that's kind of my response. I know Lamar was involved in talking with our road crews about what they felt about the safety. Lamar has been a professional engineer for 29 years with us, and before that, he was 5 years as a resident engineer of maintenance in South Carolina DOT. So, those have been decisions made. We still have been plowing private roads on a priority basis where it was easy access to do it, even though we have had problems like out on Split Rail last year, where one of the units went off the road and we had to go back and bring in other equipment to free it. But that's kind of been I think the reason why this board has done a review of plowing private roads where they see steep grades with concerns for safety that probably should have been thought about years ago and not just, recently. But I'll let the other board members respond. Or
Mr. Mayor, can we put this back in Public Works Committee and let us talk about the issue of salting roads before a snowfall event? We, see if we can work through that part of it.
That's not something we did. That's just not something we've done. We tried it a few times, and I don't see much significant benefit from the cost it gave us to do it.
I think there have been about 3 times this year. I'm sorry to. The town has done it a few times this year.
We experimented with it, but it just doesn't seem different.
I've noticed it, Lamar, and I know we get a little more traffic on our street, but it seems to work. I mean, you throw a little salt down, you get a few cars and spread it all over the place.
I was at a meeting with the Southwestern Commission where the DOT engineer for plowing and everything did a presentation about their policy. And they say that is driven a lot by the preconditions. If there's going to be rain before the snow, it just does not seem to be effective.
They use a different material altogether.
Yeah.
What's that?
Lamar, how far up Satula do we plow?
Which is just before their subdivision.
Which at Miss Worley's house? Okay.
So the switchback is what he's talking about above that. Yeah.
A lot. They've been stuck a lot. And it's like Steve said, a lot of it is private road. So we concentrate on the town street. By the time our guys get to some of these areas, it is. Because it hadn't been plowed, from the initial, storm. It adds to the.
So it's a time factor as much as anything else. We can only do so much. We do the main roads first. And so by the time we get to the outlying roads, the smaller, steeper up the mountain roads, it's been there a while, just because we only have so much equipment, so much manpower, and so many roads.
True. There was, but I'm only aware of one time last year where that was really a problem. And that was after that 12-inch snow event. Right. And of course, the road below us, they were below the Worley house. I mean, that whole section there is private. Right. So it's just a question of where do they stop? And they're not pre-treating above it, but they're pre-treating there in front of the Worley house.
It's not so much private or not private. Private are the last priorities So you do Worley Road up to the private road there, but then it comes up, goes up around the curve and gets really steep and it's narrow. And so if you come down and try and make that turn, that's where some of the times it's not just what the grade is, sometimes it's how wide the road is too.
Sure. Well, again,
Because I can slip and slide, and if I've got 2 lanes to slip and slide in, I can make it go. But if I'm in a ditch,
is it any more steep or any more sharp than some of those switchback turns on Little Bear Path that I was on today? I don't think it
those
is.
are wide.
Um,
Those are public streets. That's a difference.
Well, my point is, I'm just saying, if you're saying it's unsafe, right? If the standard is this is not safe, why is it safe for public but not safe for private? I just don't understand.
Well, part of the distinction is we'll do private roads as long as they're safe. So we don't do private roads as a priority anyway, but we will do them, but we're not going to do the unsafe ones. So public road, we have to do safe or unsafe.
Right. But of course, it's been done for decades and nothing's changed about the road. So we really don't understand why it's suddenly now on.
Let me
Well,
do
people
a
live up
creative
there.
proposal.
We do.
For the board to consider.
Let me make a comment.
Okay,
here,
go ahead.
Mr. Mayor. As far as I'm concerned, in the short amount of time that we're talking and thinking about it, I would never be a proponent of plowing a private road. Private road is a private road is a private road. And public streets require public attention. So, and it's no different. Satula would be no different to me than Shelby Place. Shelby Place has never, to my knowledge, had town attention. Certainly didn't when I lived there. We had our own little guy that came through and he plowed, and that was part of the dues structure. And I take it you live above the gate.
We do.
Okay.
And we're not the only ones that live above. the
Right,
gate, but,
right. No, I understand that.
um,
And that in itself, to me,
There's actually no gate. There's a couple of columns. But there's
Could
no
be a gate.
Well, and
there was.
No.
I'm unaware of that. Of course, I've only been there since 2018. The columns
The columns were
predated.
built, but the gate was never installed. I've tracked it.
Are you really sure?
Okay. And I don't want to open a can of worms
Okay.
and talking about that issue.
Yeah.
Right.
That's,
I mean, that's a whole,
neither-
Yeah, that's old news.
it's a whole different thing.
Okay.
My point is the town could certainly has the right not to plow private roads.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm not
There's no
a,
question of that.
Yeah.
My point is, if it's going to plow some private roads, it should plow all private roads. Similarly situated citizens should be treated similarly, right, under the 14th Amendment, right?
Well, yeah, but you try and be neighborly and helpful, and you'll plow anything as long as it's not so dangerous that we feel like it's too dangerous for our guys to plow.
Well,
but I think that if you're going to go there, then it absolutely has to be dead end last priority, because number one priority are the municipal streets.
And that's
Because you're
what-
literally just doing somebody a favor.
Right.
Okay. May I make a proposal? And y'all can,
I don't think there's a good answer to this.
well, here's the thing. I think a lot of the people that do live on these private streets, and they talk to me, that we pay town taxes. This is the basic service.
and they're going.
And
up.
Mr. Sherrill was saying that he can do it, a private contractor with the equipment. Mr. Sherrill also cuts grass for us. Would it be too far fetched for us to just simply have with a contractor for these difficult areas every year, just allocate some money, several $1,000s, for them to come in and plow those difficult areas? I see you're shaking your head, but I was just
There's
throwing
a
that out as an
liability
idea.
problem there that I wouldn't sign off on in a million years.
What's the liability problem?
When you're contracting with someone, subcontracting essentially as a town, then at what point does the town excuse its liability to you should you have that slip and fall on a 12-inch snow? And Mr. Sherrill has not shown up yet.
Well, Mr. Sherwood will have insurance, and the town is immune except to the extent to which the town has purchased insurance, right? That's what I mean, I'm not a lawyer in North Carolina.
Nor am I.
I'm a lawyer in Georgia and I do injury cases. That's what I do. But so if the rules are the same, then I have some confidence what I'm saying, but I'm not a lawyer in North Carolina. I give a legal opinion. Don't want to get in trouble with the bar.
Well, I just think us subcontracting to anybody, Worley Road's the last one, because John Churro wanted to do all the other private roads first. I mean, who does he hit first? I don't think it's the responsibility of the town, and I'm not in it anywhere along the line at grade. I don't care whether it's 0% grade, like some of the roads in Shelby Place, or whether it's 90% grade. I don't think we ought to go there, period. And that I would never make a decision based on grade.
Well, I'm reacting only to the minutes, and forgive me, I
No,
wasn't
I
part of the
understand.
discussion.
Yeah,
Okay,
no, I
I
understand.
was reacting to the minutes, which said it was unsafe because it's too steep.
Yeah, no, I
And
understand
we
that.
simply didn't understand that statement. So forgive me for being quarrelsome on it.
Lamar, aren't we doing Shelby Place? So I think
Why?
Because we were nice and did it years ago. And
No, sir. Guarantee you, didn't do it from 1986 to about 1990.
But Buzz, we have an obligation to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the public. That's the police power that the Constitution gives us. And I think, Lamar, that you try to maintain the roads at least safe enough for the garbage trucks to get down all of them, public and private.
That has nothing to do with snow and ice.
I know, but I mean, I'm trying to get there. But I think you are trying to keep vegetate where the fire truck or a garbage truck could get down all the roads, I believe.
We do snow and ice removal
I
to the
understand.
ability of the safest public travel that we can get that road under conditions we have.
I understand. I was trying to go the other way. I was trying to say, we are doing a certain level of maintenance on private roads, and it's a murky area, and we've got to
Not on
figure.
Worley Road, but on many of them, I'm sure that's true. There's no maintenance, not even minimal maintenance that's done on Worley, except for snow plowing. That's the only thing that was done. And that's obviously no longer
Oh, we
currently
put
being done.
ditches and,
No, that's paid for by the HOA.
well, not on the lower part of the world.
No, I'm sorry.
You're talking about the upper part.
The
Right,
effect, the
right,
part that
right.
we're discussing, the affected part,
Right.
we take care of.
Yeah. And that's the way they wanted it when they made the development.
Understood. No, I wasn't there. No, I'm sure you're right. I was just making the point that the only town services we get, the garbage truck does come, we get electric and water. But the only maintenance on the road has been done at all was the scraping of the road and pre-treating, and that's been removed. And
I've been to the hospital in a snowstorm, and that's why I live not on top of the mountain. I live, where I live, and I can get there quick. But we thought about that before.
We'll do a review with the Public Works Committee.
okay, thank you for letting me speak to you this evening.
Okay, thank you. Okay. The next item on the agenda would be the ABC Board appointment. And we've had one applicant, Mr. Jim Ward, who lives in town. And you were, the application was shared.
I'll make a motion to approve this.
Second.
Is that the only opening we have on the ABC board?
Just one.
Okay.
Okay,
I didn't know if we were looking for other people.
no. And we had one applicant who lives in town. Any other questions? All in favor? Thank you, unanimous. And then finally, the election of the mayor pro tem, we went to an election system. Do I have a nomination for mayor pro tem?
I'd like to nominate Brian Steeler for mayor pro tem for the
Okay.
coming year.
All right, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Thank you. Thank you, Brian, for willing to serve.
Green.
All right, and then our last item is adjournment. I will say this, we've had a healthy discussion of issues tonight. This is what elected government and democracy is all about. So do I have a motion that we adjourn? So move. Second?
Second.
All in favor? We are adjourned. Thank you.
You got the vote. You got the vote.
I got the vote.
It's all.
Did you sign this?
Being approved by the board, and there's a reason.
It's the audit responses.
It could never be a public road because of that term.
It's, everybody has to sign. So.
Well, I swear to God, if it's a public road, why can't I drive my car up there? Middle Manifold to William?
Well, no, we had to looking for a damn bin.
Well, I've got a blue one.
Well, I don't care. No, and that's why they're private.